Greetings and welcome to week 15 of COMM 110, Fundamentals of Public Speaking. We're getting down to the last few weeks of the semester now. Including finals week, we have 17 weeks total in the semester. So after this week, we have just one more week of regular class, and then the following week after that is finals week, when you will take the final exam for this course. So including this week, we have 3 weeks of class left. And this week, we are wrapping up what has for most of the semester been our normal classwork on a weekly basis. We have our last chapter from the Jaffe text, chapter 18, and we have our last talking about speaking discussion forum this week. The reason that this is the last week that we have those particular types of classwork is because next week, the last regular week of classes, is when you will be delivering and submitting your last major speech, the persuasive speech. So our final chapter this week, chapter 18, deals with another aspect of persuasive speaking. Persuasive speaking, of course, is the subject of this final chunk or unit of the semester. And we're going to be learning a little bit this week about persuasive reasoning, or some of the techniques of logic and techniques of thinking and structuring arguments that is a really important part of persuasive speaking. And so that is the subject of chapter 18, the final chapter that we'll be reading out of the Jaffe text, as well as the subject of our final reading quiz that you will take based on that material. Everything else that we are doing this week is oriented towards that persuasive speech that you're going to deliver and submit next week. Our final discussion forum this week has just one topic, and that topic is going to be you discussing or telling us about what your specific topic is going to be for your persuasive speeches. So if you haven't already done so, if you haven't already settled upon what the specific topic is going to be for your persuasive speeches, you will need to do so in anticipation of doing that final discussion forum posting this week. If you have any questions about developing the specific topic for your persuasive speech, let me know and I'll be happy to help you come up with a topic or brainstorm ideas of topics. The persuasive speech, of course, is a little different than the first two speeches in that the general purpose of the speech is not to inform like the informative and visual aid speeches were, but instead is to persuade. And so you have to come up with a little different kind of topic, and of course you have to develop a persuasive claim as well based on that topic. So let me know if you need any assistance in helping to develop or checking whether or not the topic that you are considering doing for your persuasive speech is one that is appropriate and adequate. And of course that specific topic for the persuasive speech is one that should be developed or spun off of the broad topic that you've been using all semester for the 3 major speeches. So you should be really getting into the preparations for that persuasive speech by the end of this week. There is a couple of things that are different. A large part of the preparations are the same in terms of the research, in terms of the requirements for the works cited, annotated works cited page, and the full sentence content outline. But there are a few things that are different, and let me just review one of those, and that is that you do not need to submit your heading separately. For the first 2 major speeches, the informative and the visual aid speeches, you had to submit that heading separately, and I took a look at it and gave you some feedback on it before you delivered and submitted the speech itself. We're not doing that this time because I figure that you probably have got a good enough idea of what's going into those headings. There is one significant difference, though, and that is that there are a couple of additional elements or different elements in that heading. rather than having a thesis statement, you need to have a persuasive claim. And that persuasive claim is, of course, one of those 4 types that you used for last week's mini persuasive speeches and that we've been studying. A factual claim, a definition claim, a value claim, or a policy claim. And so that claim, type of claim, needs to be on your heading. And the organizational pattern that you're going to be using needs to be selected from that new set of organizational patterns that we have in connection with persuasive speaking. So let me know. You're not going to be submitting those headings separately, but if you have questions about those elements that are different in the heading for the persuasive speech, let me know and I'll be happy to help you. At the beginning of next week, just like with the first 2 major speeches, as part of next week's coursework, the week that you deliver and submit the speeches, you will have available for you to look at before you deliver your speech 2 things: a preparation checklist that you should use as you are making the final preparations for your persuasive speech. Just go down the list and check off all of the things on that preparation checklist, and if you are able to check off all of them, you're in pretty good shape as far as having the bases covered for what you need to have in the persuasive speech and its preparation paperwork. If you go through that checklist and you do not have everything checked off or are not able to check everything off, it means you're going to want to go back and just make sure that you do all of the things that you need to do in order to be able to check off all of the items on the prep checklist. And then the other item is the grading checklist, the evaluation form that I will be using to grade your persuasive speeches, just like I have given you and let you take a look at prior to the grading on both of the first 2 major speeches. Like the first 2, it's mostly the same. There are a few additional items or alterations to items based on the fact that we're doing persuasive speaking now, but probably 80% at least of that grading checklist is exactly the same as it was for the first 2 speeches. So, Chapter 18, our final chapter from the Jaffe text this week, our final discussion forum this week, in which you'll be talking about the specific topic for your persuasive speeches, and then really moving into a high gear on those preparations for next week's persuasive speeches. So let me know if you have any questions of any kind about any of the coursework this week, especially in terms of those preparations for the persuasive speeches.